Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're continuing our series from my book, Taming the Toxic Workplace. It's available on Amazon.com and DebHollandLCSW.com. You can join me there for connecting to my Facebook page as well, where I have fresh new content every single day to uplift and inspire you. Thanks for coming back. Alright, today we're going to cover the 5 categories of co-workers and leaders that are troubled. And today we're going to go over in depth the very first one of these, which is addiction. And addiction issues do not mean that someone is roaring drunk at their desk or is shooting up in the bathroom or any of that kind of stuff. Addiction issues can be much more subtle than that. It can either be someone that grew up in an addicted family, and that type of a system, that type of a family system, generates really hallmark characteristics of behavior that people carry with them into adulthood. It does not mean they're bad people, it just means it's something that they need to overcome. The other thing it can be is an addiction of their own. Maybe they do have a drinking problem, maybe they do have a substance abuse problem, but they might be subtle. Maybe it's prescription drugs, maybe it's something that they do only outside of work, but they come into work and in one way or the other, their behavior is not normal for them. The other thing it can be, a third category of addiction that we don't talk about much, is someone else's addiction. Maybe they are a really healthy individual, they grew up in a decent family, or they've already worked through their own issues, but they have someone close up in their life who is an addict. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a parent that developed a problem later in life, and whoever it is in close enough to them that by very nature of the fact that they have to deal with that issue at all with that other person, that can throw them off in the workplace. So what are some signs? Again, all of the point of this line of conversation about categories of troubled people is for the purpose of trying to assess. You're not diagnosing, you're trying to assess what the problem in the workplace might be, because when there's disruptive behavior, it's disruptive for a reason, and we need to figure that out. So here are some things you can look for with addiction, whether it's their own, the way they grew up, or somebody else's that they're dealing with. Attendance or productivity problems. If somebody has been true blue for 10 years and they have rarely missed a day, and then all of a sudden they're missing every Monday, taking off early every Friday, and there's a pattern of absences, or their absences are suddenly erratic and all over the map, and they're away from work more than they're at work, that's a big red flag. Something is going on that's causing that. Doesn't mean necessarily that it's addiction, but it's a classic hallmark sign you might want to think about. Another thing is secretive behavior. This is a huge one. If somebody has generally been pretty upfront and trustworthy, and all of a sudden they jump when you come around the corner, they are in the bathroom and they come out and then they're acting really kind of nervous and skittish, well, you might need to think about, maybe this person is having a substance abuse problem of some kind. Maybe they're in there taking pills. Maybe they're in there because they're still sick from the night before, whatever the case may be. The point is that if the behavior is unusual for them and it's secretive, and you get that feeling around them that they're trying to hide what they're doing and what's going on, that is a huge red flag. Another one is old family roles. If you're at work with someone who grew up in a family who had addiction issues, they are going to have family roles that they were assigned in that family, and it's not anything that's ever going to have been explicitly stated, but they will have internalized it and ingrained it so much it's going to come out in the workplace unless they've worked through those issues one way or the other. So a huge one is the victim villain. So some people growing up in addicted families, anyone who exposes or challenges the addict's behavior can be labeled the villain. And the addict, who is actually the one disrupting the family, can be the one that then takes on the crown of being the victim. And they kind of march around and expect everybody else to cater to them, to cover for them, and to basically make them comfortable. So it's a classic example, maybe a bit of an extreme example, but really not too far off the mark. These things can be subtle, they can be very overt, people can be actually pretty ferocious over them. Their family roles may be how they psychologically get through the day. So if you see those types of things where someone, listen to their language, watch their behavior, if they constantly perceive themselves as a victim, no matter what the situation is, they think everything is somebody else's fault, that could actually signify an addiction issue that's messing things up in the work environment for everyone. If it's someone that, on the other hand, is hostile and secretive, and everybody else is expected to cover for them, and they kind of march around and by force try and control people, that's another huge sign of a potential addiction issue that they've had in the past. And people might not necessarily, maybe they do, but they might not necessarily even be aware of these roles that they're carrying into the workplace. So the purpose in assessing the problems is not to judge or condemn anyone else, not to diagnose anyone else. It's to try and trace the problem in the work environment back. Here we've got this person who's behaving in an incredibly disruptive, if not destructive way, and trace it all the way back. All right, what do we know about this person? What could the problem potentially be? And that's the purpose of the assessment, because later on in this book, we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to get to the part about what do you do about these problems. Okay, so maybe it is addiction. So what? Then what? Then what do you do? We're going to get to that in several weeks from now. So for today, we just want to cover the topic of addiction and give you some thoughts and ideas about how to recognize it, and make sure that you know that this is for the purpose of just trying to figure out how to make your own work life better. And if you're a leader, make life better for your team. Thanks so much for joining me. Come join me on Facebook. Join me on my website. I'll look forward to seeing you real soon. Thanks.